Detective Marcus Graves. Journal Entry 1. Something's off about the Clark case. I've been working homicide for 20 years, and I've seen my share of killers, but nothing like this. At first, the daisy chain murder seemed random. No clear motive, no connection between the victims except for one thing: daisies. Every single one of them had a daisy chain left at the scene, sometimes around their necks, sometimes placed delicately in their hands. But there's a pattern here, a connection just beneath the surface. I think I've found it. Her name is Amelia Clark, or as her old classmates called her, AIM. Entry 2. The first thread. It started with her parents. I paid them a visit after her name popped up in some interviews. One of the victims, Ryan Mallory, knew her in college. It was a long shot, but something in my gut told me Amelia wasn't just some random person caught up in all this. When I knocked on the door of the Clark residence, I didn't expect what I found. Amelia's mother, Karen Clark, answered the door. She was a frail woman, all nerves and wringing hands. Her eyes darted around like she expected something terrible to happen at any moment. Her husband, Richard, wasn't much better. He sat in an armchair staring blankly at the television, barely acknowledging my presence. "We haven't seen AIM in years," Karen said, her voice shaking. "Not since she ran off before high school. She was troubled." "Troubled how?" I asked. Karen hesitated, biting her lip. "She wasn't like other kids. Always quiet, always in the garden, playing with those damn flowers. Daisies, mostly. She used to make those chains all the time." That hit me like a freight train. Daisies. Just like the murders. "She ever talk about running away?" I pressed. Karen shook her head. "Not really, but she changed after the accident." "What accident?" She looked at me like I should already know. "The car accident. When she was 10, she was out playing and the neighborhood boy got hit by a car. She watched him die. After that, she wasn't the same. It's like a light went out inside her. She started spending all her time alone, making those daisy chains. And then, one day, she was gone." Her voice cracked and she buried her face in her hands. Richard didn't even look up. There was something else, something unspoken, but I didn't push them. Not yet. I had enough for now. Entry 3. Amelia's Web. The more I dig, the worse it gets. Ryan Mallory, one of the daisy chain victims, had a connection to AIM Clark. They were partnered on a college project years ago. A little more digging shows that Jake Harris, another victim, went to the same high school as Amelia. And now there's a third. Eliza Murphy. Her brother? Same high school, same year as Amelia. That's no coincidence. These killings aren't random. They're connected to AIM's past. People she's encountered, people who wronged her maybe. But it's too scattered, too subtle, There's a ritual to it. The daisy chains aren't just a signature. They're part of something more. A ritual of control, of innocence lost. But what drives her? Entry 4. The garden. I keep coming back to that garden, the one at the Clark house. I stopped by again today, watched Karen Clark tend to it, like she's been doing for years. I asked her if Aim used to spend time there. Karen said, that's where she felt safest. She'd sit out there for hours, just weaving flowers together. We all thought it was sweet, until she stopped talking to us. Stopped talking altogether. What do you mean? I asked, leaning forward. She stopped speaking to anyone. Not a word. Not after the accident. She just stared. When we'd try to talk to her, she'd weave faster, like she was shutting us out. After a while, she'd vanish into the garden and come back with those daisy chains. I started finding them everywhere. I could see the fear in her eyes, the way her hands shook as she spoke. She was broken, wasn't she? After the accident? Karen didn't answer, but she didn't have to. That's when I realized something crucial. Aim wasn't just making daisy chains for fun. They were a form of control, of focus. And now, as an adult, that control had evolved into something far darker. Entry 5. The ritual. The ritual itself is still unclear, but I'm piecing it together. Aim's victims aren't just killed, they're arranged. Always with the daisy chain, always in a peaceful, serene position. Almost like she's trying to preserve their innocence in death. It's about reclaiming innocence, I think. Her victims were people from her past, people tied to traumatic moments in her life. The daisy chains are a symbol, a twisted, perverse representation of purity in childhood. She kills them to purify them, to take control of their lives the way she couldn't control her own. But there's something else I can't shake. The precision, the calm. None of these murders were done in a fit of rage. They're cold, calculated, almost ritualistic. She doesn't just kill. She completes them, turns them into art. The way she arranged Mallory's body, with his hands clasped and the daisy chain around his neck. It's almost like she's offering them to something, someone. I have to find her before she kills again. Entry 6. Confrontation. I finally caught up with her. Aim Clark, standing in the middle of an empty park, a daisy chain in her hands. She looked just like her old photos. Dark hair, innocent face. But there was a coldness in her eyes that sent a chill down my spine. She smiled when she saw me, as if she'd been expecting me. "You're too late," she said softly, her voice carrying a strange calm. "It's already done." "What are you talking about, Aim?" I asked, keeping my distance. My hand hovered over my holster. "They were innocent," she whispered, almost half to herself. "Not like the daisies. Not like me." My heart pounded as I realized what she meant. She wasn't just killing them to reclaim her innocence. She was killing them to cleanse the world of their impurity, In her mind, she was the last pure thing left. I moved forward, slowly, but she raised her hand, the daisy chain dangling from her fingers. "You can't stop the chain," she said, her voice rising. "You can't stop what's already begun." That's when I noticed the fresh daisies in her hand and the faint scent of blood on the wind. Aim Clark was beyond saving. I had my gun ready, but part of me hesitated. Could this girl, this quiet, broken girl, really be capable of all the horrors I'd discovered? But as her smile widened, I knew. She was the daisy chain killer, and I was her next link.